Former board director for several JSE-listed companies, Thabi Leoka, has been imposed with a 500,000 rand fine for lying about her doctorate qualification. Now, according to the JSE News Service statement, the penalty will include her immediate disqualification from holding any office or directorship of a company listed on the JSE for the next 5 years. Leoka served as a non-executive director at companies including Remgro, Anglo-American and Netcare. And according to the statement released this morning, the misrepresentation resulted in these companies showing what was misleading information to investors and raises questions about her integrity. And more concerning is that she was not willing to cooperate with the investigations into her qualification saga. To further unpack this now, let's welcome Professor Tshepo Mongalo, who is a professor of corporate law at Wits University. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to SA Today. So quite concerning, right, that we are constantly being informed of such professional qualifications fraud committed by those who have been entrusted with very key portfolios.
Yeah, and what is even more concerning, good afternoon. What is even more concerning is that it was not even necessary for any person acting as a director to claim, a qualification of a PhD in economics at such a top university without such a qualification. Let me just say that for a director to claim that they have such a qualification, it is not a requirement in terms of any law that I'm aware of that a director has to have certain qualifications and skills. But if you claim to have such qualifications and skills, you are running a risk that when it comes to your performance of the duty of care, skill, and diligence, you will be held to a higher standard because as a director, with a particular skill and experience, you are held to a very high standard, unlike your fellow directors who may not have such qualification and skills.
Absolutely, Professor. So then what do you make of this punishment, though? Is this R500,000 Rand fine and technically being blacklisted for just 5 years from serving in a similar role sufficient?
I think it's even, for a director at that level, it's even more, harsh when we think of it, because the information that has been provided by the companies that was found to be misleading for investors may cause investors a lot in terms of their investment if that would have been the only reason why they would have invested in the companies. But I think from Thabi Leoka's perspective, she already had a lot of experience in terms of corporate boards, and I think the investors were already aware of what she was capable of doing and what skills she had. Whether she had a qualification or not may not have actually influenced their decision in investing. And I don't think that we can say that they have lost a lot as a result of investing on the basis of the qualification. And therefore, for me, I think the 500,000 Rand fine and the disbarment from acting in the directorship position, it appears to be quite harsh for a person who may not have influenced any unfavorable investment decision, as the JSE is arguing that the information was misleading to investors.
Interesting perspective you bring there, Professor, of that she was good enough to conduct herself in her chosen roles, because I suppose as we've seen with previous similar incidents, the qualifications and how this person actually conducted themselves and in terms of their duties was always called into question. So I like the fact that you point out that there was actually not even a need for her to prove her aptitude. So should the institutions then of higher learning also not be called to account on such matters, Professor? I know you work at Wits, but as we understand, we saw in the Ford Hair qualification scandal a matter that has also still not yet been finalized. So sometimes there are suspected authorities within the universities that are actually working with some people to falsify their qualifications.
Yes, I think that's where most of the blame should actually go. that if there is anyone who is implicit in ensuring that someone misrepresents their qualification within institutions, they must actually face the music. It doesn't matter at what level they are, as long as it can be proved that misrepresentation in relation to the qualification can be ascribed to them, then they should face the music. And I think in that way, we can be able to then root out some more elements, rogue elements within academic institutions that are perpetrating this kind of misconduct by members of the public.
And Prof, I mean, just from your observation and what information and data you have, just how far widespread is this type of practice of staff, university staff, actually colluding with some of, individuals or even students to try and give them a false qualification?
Not on the issue of giving false qualification, but maybe with regard to what the incidents that I have seen is of certain academics and senior scholars within institutions basically helping students who are doing research degrees to basically go ahead in their qualification and basically complete their qualification, even though it is not them, because they would have helped them to such an extent that actually if it was not for their contribution, the student would not have qualified. That is what the concern is. But with regard to forging qualifications, I haven't really seen that as a problem in my research and in the incidents that I have actually had to deal with. But those two are helping students, not only in terms of advising and guiding them as supervisors, but even doing their work at some point. I have seen incidents like those where you basically are writing a student's manuscript in terms of the thesis or the mini dissertation, and you find a lot of lecturers going beyond just the issue of guiding and mentoring as supervisors, but going to the extent of even doing the work for them. There we have a few, and I think that one has to be addressed, because it may lead to people qualifying, whereas it is not on the basis of their contribution, but on the basis of their supervisors or other academics who then take over the role of writing the research for the students rather than the students doing that themselves.
They call them ghostwriters, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're out of time. That is Professor Tshepo Mongalo there. He's Professor of Corporate Law at Wits University, weighing in on Thabi Leoka's qualification, fine, as well as punishment. Let's take a quick ad break. More news in a short while.